What's the worst HR is not your friend story you've witnessed/experienced? By Ask Reddit.
I went to HR to report that my team's manager was illegally shorting all of our paychecks. Our response was to adopt a new, company-wide policy addressing the paycheck issue and backpaying most people for a certain amount, and also to frame me for work avoidance. HR and IT disabled part of my login account to a tool we used, and then fired me a few months later after failing to fix the problem and allowing me to actually do my job. They tried to deny my unemployment claim afterward. Told the unemployment rep that they had logs showing that I did something to break the tool I don't even have access to break in the first place. They also didn't think to disable my email access in a timely manner, so I was able to back up all my emails with IT documenting exactly what went down. Unemployment approved my claim and hit them with a major penalty to their insurance.
I love it when justice is served.
I work in Sweden. I had a friend recruited to an identical position as mine. I had to tutor him for a year, given that I have more work-life experience for that gig. He came in earning €1,000 a month more than I did. When time came for salary discussions for me, I used this example and my manager tried to pass that along to at least align my salary. The HR partner responded that they didn't want to make that drastic raise because, and I quote, there might come a time where he, me, wouldn't do the same things as now, and if that happens, we can't downgrade his pay, and he would therefore be overpaid. This is because 2 other team members has been demoted and now make manager pay for less work. We share job description, but they make double of what I do. I got a minor raise that year due to my boss asking the team members to give up a small share of their annual raises to be able to align my salary. Quite insane that they actually did that. Still not anywhere close to being aligned. On Monday comes this year's salary discussion. Madness to be continued. Delivery-wise I perform better than they do. They are 10 and 20 years older. The friend I mentioned is 1 year younger than me.
This is why I forward important emails to my personal one. I'm getting ready to go on maternity leave and I've saved every correspondence about my pregnancy because I know my company would pull the same poo. Edit, OMG 1K upvotes. Thanks everyone.
Pulled into a meeting with 2 HR reps in the middle of my shift. Taken to this really nice boardroom, which was confusing because I was just a grunt and this is literally floors above where I should ever be. They sat me down and said basically, what do you have to say for yourself? Me, still confused, tells them I have no idea what they are talking about. Everyone is really quiet and serious and I'm scared police. And they say, you know what you did, this is cause for termination, blah blah. I'm literally thinking this is really excessive for being a few minutes late sometimes. I insist I don't know what's going on. One of them maybe realized something was wrong and flips open a file and says you're XX right. Turns out they got me mixed up with someone else who has the same name. On the elevator ride down by myself I was still sweating. Don't know what that other person did, but man, HR does not play.
This happened at one place I worked at. They pulled the wrong sister into a meeting and started chewing her out for far too long, before they realized they had the wrong person in there. I don't think apologies were ever made.
Oh yeah, nobody said sorry. Edit, I should add, this is Canada where we have a special sorry law where saying sorry doesn't constitute admission of guilt because we all say it so much. So they totally could have apologized.
They never do.
I had the Air Force Office of Special Investigations do that poo to me back in like 2002 or so. I got told OSI called and wanted me to go over to their office. I got interrogated for about 10 minutes, them accusing me of doing cocaine and hanging out with some other dude I barely knew. After me arguing with them for those 10 minutes or so, they finally said, "Aren't you this airman super common last name?" And I was like, "Yeah, but there's multiple airman super common last name in my shop alone." Yeah, turns out, they meant a different person completely. They saw my last name and never checked my ID or asked my first name. I had to get read into the investigation because they effed up.
I had to get read into the investigation because they F'd up. That is the funniest one I've read on this thread. I wasn't back in 2002, but CID hasn't changed at least.
HR ordered me to downgrade my 3 excellent employee reviews to satisfactory because management didn't recognize their names. I got written up for telling my employees this. HR denied that they told me anything, even though I had the emails from them documenting it. Totally worth it. My employees were excellent and got the raises they deserved.
I saw a similar situation. The company has a policy where 10% of the workers had to get bad performance reviews, which meant no raise that year. What the company didn't take into account is that some teams are small and hyper-specialized. You can imagine what happened next. A bunch of crucial employees quit and that policy was cancelled, but the damage was done. Edit. Wow, people really enjoy corporate incompetence. Let me tell you another. The company has a policy that limits an intern to 5 years. I started there somewhere during my bachelor's and now near the end of my master's. It took over 5 years, so now they are letting me go. My boss doesn't want to let me go and his boss doesn't want to let me go, but you can't argue with corporate.
I fight this every year. Their argument is that part of the job should be going above and beyond the call of duty, so when people do a good job that's technically satisfactory work which warrants the same merit increase as everybody else. When I ask what the metrics are for exemplary work, they straight up told me that executive leadership isn't allowing any exemplary ratings this year and that generally nobody should be able to get an exemplary rating. My counter is that hard work should be rewarded to encourage further hard work, and ask if they want to send a message that the company is only willing to encourage the bare minimum. Yes, that's what we'd prefer. The 3-point scale should just be a 2-point scale. Nobody should get a 3. Ain't that some poo?
Welcome to our high-performance culture, where we take hard work for granted and treat great employees like crap.
I'm a manager at a company that uses a 5-point scale, with 5 being the highest. You learn real quick not to use the 5 because you will be getting a 1-hour-long interview from someone in HR asking you how someone could score so high.
It gets even better when you work your ass off all year to be one of those 5-point employees, somehow actually get it, and realize the bonus absolutely was not worth it. For me it was a 6% raise and stock grant that vested over 5 years. Neat, but not worth damn near killing myself and only living to work for a year. From that point forward I maximized my time to GTFO of the office as early as possible every day, 8 hours max and no weekends ever. Ironically, when I dedicated myself to working as little as possible, I still got an above average review the following year. Really highlighted just how arbitrary and capricious the whole thing was. Edit. The most depressing part was probably getting my vacation time cashed out the following year, since I hadn't used any. Really puts things in perspective for you. Holy poo, this brings back an awful memory. We introduced a new performance-based bonus system, where if you exceeded expectations on the goals set in the year you got a good percentage bonus. So everyone worked really hard in my department, things got done above and beyond. I slaved 45+ hours a week, came in overnight, all that jazz. We had a huge meeting where HR then said that because everyone worked so hard, every employee in the department was being downgraded from the highest or second highest level to just okay. We were fuming, but it turns out, the people who didn't get rejudged were the management. I quit about 6 months later.
A kind of similar thing happened to me at my old job. Our entire IT department get tested based on our skills level. Turns out, more than half of us were suited for higher categories, meaning we were getting underpaid. I was not a junior but a semi-senior, for example. Suddenly the test doesn't matter and HR basically forgets about it, but now you have a bunch of employees that know they are being played. Everyone left eventually.
Something similar happened at my previous job. It's a large international company and the branch we were working at had an incredibly bad leadership. Eventually, the manager was fired and replaced by someone the investors sent us. He blamed the 87% performance on us while everyone spent at least 2 of 7 working hours on things they aren't paid for: documentation, correction, customer contact, technical drawings, communication, and established a system with payment based on performance because he believed us to be overpaid. We changed things up to reach over 100% performance and left everything that isn't part of our job description alone. Branch had to be closed 4 months later as the whole organization fell apart.
I worked in a call center for a cell provider when I was younger, let's call them Sprint Mobile. We had a bonus structure that was based on our call metrics, hold time, handle time, call resolution and all that. A lot of the metrics were obtainable, but one was hard: call resolution. Sometimes people had to go to stores, wait for replacement devices, or needed software updates that required follow-up calls. But they got surveyed right after the call and asked if their problem was resolved. Well, my last year there, we got our metrics at the beginning of the year, and by November about 60% of the floor hit them. 2 weeks before bonus time they changed the metrics and only 20% of the floor got their bonus.
This is the most mind-blowing thing, and something similar happened at one of my past employers. The whole team worked hard, and then it turns out there's a max quota for each level rating, kind of a forced bell curve type deal, so some people got higher than average and some got lower than average. That's an easy way to torpedo team morale and any future attempts at teamwork. What a staggeringly stupid thing to do. Everybody was pissed and committed to doing the bare minimum from that point forward.
So with a performance review cycle 1 year, my manager at the time opened with, just so everyone is aware before I start performance reviews, our third line manager, and up want me to put needs improvement for at least one field for everyone. I don't personally agree with that, so don't take it personally. This was in a private department's Slack channel so that all my co-workers could see, but our uplines aren't in the channel. When he actually got around to the individual performance reviews and got to me, he started with, firstly, I've been advised to retract my statement about the mandatory needs improvement. Before going into the review, I figured someone ratted him out. I'm really wondering who the rat was. Personally, I'd rather honesty about things like that, but I can see why HR and upline managers wouldn't. Edit, rip my inbox. To address some common comments, none. Yes, my manager at the time is a dope for putting that in writing. He wasn't always the most tactful, I'll say that much. No argument here from those of you saying he was dumb for doing that. To those asking what these reviews are used for, they are used for bonus calculations, promotion decisions, and deciding layoffs. At least part of the reason they insist on one improvement area is so they can cut someone of their choosing for performance reasons if layoffs hit our area. I imagine they also use it in cases where someone is an HR issue and they need an excuse to can them. I'm aware that that's just standard corporate politics, nothing new. Bonuses and promotions aren't too affected in practice unless you have multiple needs improvement areas or your improvement area is something critical to your job, because everyone has at least one. It becomes more a question of your ratings in areas critical to your job. To people asking what my needs improvement was, every year it's always been on one of the factors that's not particularly relevant to my job. I've always gotten meets and exceeds on the factors that actually matter for my day-to-day job.
That function is available, but very much turned off in my company. I'm the guy with the switch. This sounds like the company I work for. My manager would never say this kind of things on Slack though, only face to face.
Even though I had the emails from them documenting it. Bonus points for being so stupid to put it in writing and then thinking they could deny it.
HR routinely orders downgrades of reviews in companies. It is so frustrating. I get there might be some lazy manager or sycophants that give everyone 5/5 stars, but having a HR drone tell me I can only give out X amount of exceeds expectations across my entire team is infuriating. We have set KPIs and my employees can read the numbers just as well as me. Let me credit performance based on their actual performance and not your percentage-based grading system intended to limit bonus costs, you goddamn leeches.
HR hired consultants to run morale-building employee input sessions. Basically saying we're not from the company. You can tell us all the things you don't like about working here and would like to see changed, and we'll put it all into a report for management. Don't worry, everything is anonymous, we just need material for our report and you guys get to have your say in improving things around here. Turns out HR and the consultants recorded all the sessions and played the highlights for management. People were disciplined for criticizing the company or their immediate superiors, and any shred of faith or trust in management that the employees may have had was instantly incinerated. Managers now complain that they don't know what's going on in their teams because nobody tells them anything. I wonder why.
Reminds me my last company. Ours sent out anonymous survey in .doc file by email, and we should have replied back with filled blanks. We figured out it's not really anonymous, as who sent it would literally be written in from. So we filled the forms on the same machine, and sent all them in single email. And HR was like, wait, you can't do that. By anonymous I meant I will not tell boss, and just aggregate data for them, can't say it inspired lots of trust.
I used to conduct the annual survey for IT for a medium-sized company. I could have identified the individuals. That's how you are able to do the reminders. However, knowing management, the first thing I did when the survey closed was delete the unique key that could tie back to any single person. I never saved a version with keys on company servers. I also set minimum group sizes for data sharing, so they couldn't narrow down responses so far as to pick out individuals. Paranoid? Maybe. But we got great, honest feedback year after year. Luckily the exec I was working with also followed through with concrete plans and tracking back to the results. Wish it was the norm.
Not all heroes wear capes. Well done. I noticed an anonymous survey wasn't anonymous when HR emailed all the people who had yet to take it. I was like, how do they know who didn't take it, and thus refused to do it? Edit. The reminder came directly from the HR manager, not a third-party service or otherwise auto-generated email.
I noticed an anonymous survey wasn't anonymous when it asked for my employee number. They really thought we were that stupid.
My former employer sent me to employer-funded therapy and then used the therapist's notes to place me on indefinite stress leave because, as they put it, employee exhibits negative views of workplace. I was a prison guard. Of course I didn't like being there. That doesn't mean I'm incapable of handling it.
I'm sorry you weren't the sociopath they were looking for.
Thank you, Jesus.
Private security here. I love what I do, and my company has an EAP I wish I could use. But this is one of the industries where they're allowed to access your mental health records. I'm not even armed. I've finally sought mental health treatment, but I know doing so is ruining my chances of ever working governmental. It sucks, but it is what it is.
My company just rolled out company-funded therapy and counseling. No one trusts it. Wouldn't something like therapy be impossible to report on? I'm sure there are some privacy and HIPAA regulations in place somewhere.
Late 90s, my manager mentioned that one of my friends had used the Employee Assistance Program counseling because it showed up on his budget report as a line item with that person's name.
Depends on how it is approached. If the company claims it's just to find out how you're doing, you can 100% believe they will be told about what you say. If you're actually being treated for something, then HIPAA would apply.
I've used EAP provided by my health insurance, in the US, to find a counselor a handful of times. In my experience, if you seek counseling for yourself, they give you a list of EAP-compliant counselors and therapists. But those professionals practice independently or for a mental health office. Meaning, they aren't hired directly by your company, they just have a deal with your health insurance. From what I'm reading, mental health professionals cannot legally disclose information about what you've talked about to your employer. They might be able to disclose info if they feel you are in danger to yourself or others, but I believe that's only to family members/authorities. I'm not saying it's never happened, but I'm fairly positive it's illegal.
Just because there are laws doesn't mean people follow them.
We provided you some counseling. Are they a counselor? I said counseling.
I'm not even sure if it could be qualified as therapy, hence why many are skeptical if the counselors have to obey those rights to privacy. Don't trust your company. I have an office for my law practice. No employees. One man. Me. I don't even trust HR.
Everything is anonymous, oh hell no. I worked for PSU and they gave us one of these workplace climate surveys once, and I noticed the URL was personalized for each person. Yes, I'll definitely be honest on this one when you know who it is.
Yeah, I fell for that once in my first time doing a workplace engagement survey thing. Starry-eyed, wet behind the ears, 22-year-old me said what I really felt, and some of it wasn't flattering. But honestly, in hindsight it wasn't too bad at all. I wasn't quite jaded by that point. In our next regularly scheduled one-on-one, my manager pulled up my comments on the anonymous survey to discuss what I said. After that point, I leave neutral or positive scores on everything, never make comments, basically do the bare minimum on those anonymous feedback things. If they want actual feedback, it needs to be actually anonymous. I personally don't trust any anonymous work thing anymore.
I used to work for a large hosting company and we would get anonymous surveys every year. I was absolutely scathing in all of my feedback, just effing savagely brutal to the point where it was essentially a dare for anyone to reveal that they knew I wrote it. Nothing ever happened to me and they also never listened to my feedback.
Worked for Yale and left scathing feedback also. You can see all results across the company. It never negatively impacted my job, but also there were never improvements, so it's a waste of time.
Managers, we made a decision. Why do we have to be responsible for its foreseeable consequences? See.
I worked at a smallish company that grew big enough to hire our person. Her office was down from mine, so in the mornings I'd swing by and say hi. That turned into grabbing a cup of coffee she had just made, into having a pastry, and talking about life. I found that if I mentioned someone's name in passing, a few minutes later she would spill the beans about that person's life. What work issues they had, health issues, family issues, etc. I learned really quick any issues I had not to take them to her. She made it like 6 months before she got fired.
And here I was thinking she was purely satirical.
Damn. This was like the HR supervisor of my former company. She didn't have formal training in HR but still got the job because of connections. She would tell anyone she was close with confidential details about certain employees, like their health and family issues. She would also divulge information that only the management should know, like business negotiations. And it was all voluntarily done. Anyone with formal training who worked under her never lasted a year. Last I heard, they finally hired an HR manager she would report to.
The HR/payroll manager at a small hospital I worked at had a bad habit of not paying out the sign-on bonus that was paid out incrementally in 3 payments through the course of a year, and sign-on bonuses for picking up extra shifts. After repeated requests to be belatedly compensated, I took it to corporate, who addressed my issue immediately. A couple weeks later I was terminated on what amounted to a technicality where I forget my badge one shift and my relief was late to take over sitting with a patient, causing me to receive more points against me than if I had called out for that shift. When I was called in to receive my notification, the director of nursing was shocked, but ultimately not much she could do.
Wage theft is the single largest type of theft, in terms of sheer dollar value, year after year.
Overall, I've been able to get along with HR departments with one exception. I was working a help desk job for a company during college and the head of HR called in for help. He was making an Excel spreadsheet and couldn't figure out how to make a formula do what he wanted. I offered to come take a look as we were in the same building, and he told me I couldn't because the spreadsheet was full of confidential information. So I asked then if he could describe what exactly he was trying to do without giving away any specific info, and he told me that what he was trying to do was confidential. So I clarified that he wanted me to tell him how to do something, but I couldn't see it and he wouldn't even tell me what it was he was trying to do. At that point he agreed that I wouldn't be able to assist him since he couldn't divulge anything. As soon as we hung up he called my boss to complain that I was useless.
That there is a top-tier class A moron. You have my sympathy.
They already said it was the head of HR, calling him a class A moron is redundant.
What a effing moron. I had a similar experience when I worked in cell phone sales in college. A police officer drove up in his uniform and police car, and says he's having a problem with his phone bill. So I ask for his phone number to look up his account, and he says I can't give you that. I'm sure you understand why. He wouldn't give me any other information either, and I was forced to tell him I couldn't assist him without accessing his phone account at all, and he was welcome to call customer service for help. He finally broke down and gave me his phone number. You must have worked at a corporate-owned cell store. The trick with cell phone sales is to only work at shady third-party companies. Oh, you want to cancel your contract and it's gonna be charged back on my commission. Sorry, you have to call customer service for that. Oh, this company's coverage sucks and this whole thing is bullpoo. Sorry, you have to call customer service for that. Oh, they effed up on your bill and you wanna sort it out. You know the deal. The best is when there is a corporate store in the general area. We had a map with a trail printed out to send people along on their goose chase to get them out of our store. Cell phone companies are grimy as poo in general, but those third-party stores are the absolute gutter. If you ever go into a cell carrier's store, the first question should be, is this a corporate store or third party? If it's a third party, run, but spill your drink on the floor on your way out. Straight grime time.
Sounds like IT in a nutshell. None.
For 25 years management has been trying to turn IT from a cost center to a revenue generator.
Not just IT, I'm working in QC and everybody is upset we cost money and don't produce anything.
Worked as a sales manager/product specialist. I trained the sales staff, backed them up on sales calls, ran sales presentations regarding product and taught/oversaw the guy preparing all the product. I was demoted because I wasn't generating enough sales under my name, no POO. I pushed all sales calls to my team so I didn't compete with them.
Car drives into garage for repairs. Hey, there's a problem with my car. Okay, well you've come to the right place. What's the problem? I'm not telling you. Why? I can't tell you that either. Get the F out my garage.
1 star. I actually had a super similar thing happen to me. I just told her to give me fake data and she was able to do that for me.
That's pretty typical in InsurTech where I work.
I asked my boss for a desk phone with a speakerphone function because sometimes I need it at work to conference people on the phone with people in my office. We had these old, yellow phones. So he told me to make a request to him and CC our office manager, and he'd send it to the HR department of our region via email. So I put forth a nice email outlining what I am requesting, and why I need it for HR's request. My office manager replies all and asks HR per Lazarus 870 request, should I order the phone through the same channels I have used before or is there a new policy? None. My office manager told my boss, who called HR and chewed her out and I could hear yelling. My boss came out of his office and yelled at me, see what you've caused. He was fired up but I know he didn't mean anything malicious by it. I just laughed. None. At the company picnic we had to wear effing name tags and I had never met HR lady face to face and she came up and said, oh we haven't met, what's your name, and I was trying to hide my name tag but she read it and didn't seem happy to see me.
Why does HR have anything to do with equipment? It's human resources, not equipment resources. They had to okay all purchases.
I never understood why HR had to okay the purchases at my old company too. My coworker ordered stuff for our department, and one of the things she put down was Kleenex, which our boss said was fine because we were running low. HR sees it and sends a long email to both my coworker and boss saying we were wasting money and to cancel the order because there were some in a storage cabinet. To be fair, none of us knew, and that cabinet was located outside our department room. Our boss looked through the purchases before ordering, but for some reason, HR was always strict and wanted to know why we were purchasing certain things. We need those binders for our project. What other reason would we buy them?
At my last real job before striking out on my own, I had an exit interview with the HR lady, who was actually just someone who was friends with the company president, who was filling in because the actual HR lady with a degree in HR and everything quit. A lot of people at this place quit. It was a terrible place to work with out-of-touch management and delusions of grandeur, limping along building websites for a business niche that was mostly old people who thought the internet was magic. During the exit interview, she asked why I was leaving. I told her I liked my co-workers a lot, but hated the company. She got this exasperated look and got genuinely upset, and told me that she'd been getting that same line from everybody else who quit and had their exit interview recently. It boggled my mind that they could hear the same thing over and over again from so many people, putting in their time until they could go on to something better and not stop to think they should change something.
It boggled my mind that they could hear the same thing over and over again from so many people, putting in their time until they could go on to something better and not stop to think they should change something. It's not a defect, it's a feature. A lot of businesses don't need the best and brightest when the fairly competent and cheapest will do. As long as there's fresh meat in the job pool, what you're describing is just a great way to keep costs down.
In many cases it doesn't even keep the cost down, as it just shifts the money to an over-bloated HR department that has to deal with all the hirings and quitting of people. Probably the HR personnel is just looking after their own jobs by not changing anything.
Office survey. I put in some honest opinions of a member of my team. They were fair and honest criticisms of a system which was not working as designed. I had little contact with the system, but the whole thing seemed reasonable to me. I was, in effect, demoted for this. A position was created above me and a colleague who was my equal was to be my manager. Position did not exist before. This happened the same week my husband died, and the management felt like poo because of the timing. But still, on my return to work, I was basically called out for criticizing the same system in a whole company meeting, and it was explained how X system should and did work, and anyone who thought it didn't work was stupid. Cut to 2 years later. Person above me quits, partly because they are scared to tell company that anything's gone wrong because of how I was treated, and they have to promote me to that position because it now exists according to the rules and I'm the only one who can do it. Again, in a whole company meeting, they admit X system isn't working and we're having a consultation to find out why. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I had to leave the room before it turned into hysteria. Edit, typos.
Are you still working over there? Let them burn themselves, no need to fix things for them assholes.
Flexitime means that I take a lot of time off when school's out. During term I put in an extra 8 to 10 hours per week, which translates to extra leave at holiday times. Now I'm on my own with the kids. I don't know what I would do without it. Flexitime is hard to find with my particular skill set. WFHATM, but I can't see me moving on until the kids are older.
I worked in the bakery at a Fred Meyer's for about 6 months when I was freshly 19. There was this like 45-year-old guy in meat/seafood who was super creepy, and all of the women in my department and even one woman who was previously in my department but was moved to another to get away from him warned me about this man from day one. Somehow, any time I was on my break, he would be on his break too, and he'd follow me into the break room and try to flirt with me the entire time. Not only did he follow me on my breaks and lunches, but if I had to walk to another part of the store to get anything he would run to catch up to me and walk with me. He followed me to my car a few times after I got off shift, and the scariest time was when I was closing by myself and he came into the back of the bakery and kept following me around the long table, trying to grab me while telling me how much he liked me and how badly he wanted to be with me. I told him no and to leave me alone constantly, while managers just shrugged and said that's just how he is. My boyfriend threatened him when he got off work one time. Hell, even my father came in and threatened him because no one was doing anything. The final straw for me was one night when I was closing alone again. He came into the back area and followed me into the freezer and tried to kiss me, and he grabbed my ass. I pushed him and effing ran to the closing manager, who also functioned as HR. He said he'd watch the store footage and talk to me the next day. Next day comes and he pulls me into his office and says that he saw the video and saw this man stalking me inside and outside of work, and that he talked to him about his behavior, to which the man responded that it was just a misunderstanding. I replied that this had been going on for months and I wasn't going to take it anymore, and he had the effing nerve to tell me that he just does this to all the new girls. As soon as another girl gets hired, he'll leave me alone. I told him he was a bastard and quit on the spot. Turns out the creep was the brother of the store's owner, who had been to jail in the past for sexual assault and rape but was now cleaning his life up. TLDR, 45-year-old man stalked 19-year-old me for 6 months trying to be with me. Told managers on many occasions, they didn't listen. Guy finally assaults me, managers talk with him. He says it's a misunderstanding. Manager says he just does this to all the new girls, and when a new girl gets hired he'll chase her and not me. Turns out Guy is a registered sex offender for sexual assault and rape, but he's the little brother of the store's owner, so he gets a pass. This would be a good one for the corporate 1-800 number. Meh, I worked for Kroger, they literally don't give a flying rat F.
Nowadays, the word sexual harassment lawsuit should give any decent company the kick in the ass they need to actually do something.
This is a lawyer up type of situation. EEOC don't F around.
The fact that he does this to all the new girls doesn't excuse him, and the fact that management knows this makes them an accessory to any assault he commits. They have an obligation to provide a safe place for all their employees, including new young female employees. Not HR, but heed my warning, don't type anything into your work computer that you wouldn't say directly to your company's HR person's face. I have seen people had cases built against them for poor work, and ultimately fired for the poo they say over Skype.
I work in a mobile environment and have a company-issued tablet. And I bring my own tablet to work too. Why? 'Cause company stuff stays on company tablet and personal stuff on my own tablet. I don't even check personal emails with company tablet.
As a sysadmin, thanks. At my company people even use company-issued devices for personal life. Granted, you have to tell your supervisor, but it's allowed.
One place I sysadmined, users were using the MS Exchange server to email each other zipped-up copies of pirated movies they embedded into PowerPoint files. It was insane.
In your shoes, I think I'd be more impressed than pissed.
It's like in TV shows when the company goes through company emails and they see all the crap people have said about them or management through company emails. I've seen enough comments on Reddit of that happening, and I always ask who the F talks shot about a company on company email.
I had someone ask me if they could take their lunch at the end of the day instead of at noon to leave early. I got up, told them to never ask me that again over DM for that reason. I told them yes verbally, but they are forcing my hand and I have to say no over DM.
After 4 years on the job, I was given a first and final warning for asking why the hell HR was behind a locked door, and now dominated over half the first floor, filled with new furniture that was unused after 6 months. Meanwhile, My chair was taken by another employee, and I was told to use the chair without padding. An executive from another department heard my complaint, stole one of the unused chairs from the HR expansion, and gave it to me, explaining that if I did it, I'd be fired. She did it, daring them to fire her.
That's a cool executive.
Ergonomics is a thing. My company has a whole program that is focused on employee wellness, and ergonomics is an important part of that. I suspect that having the program reduces employer health insurance costs, so it is in their best interest to provide ergonomic chairs, sitting forward/standing desks, and training for posture, how your arm should be positioned for the keyboard, how high the monitor should sit, etc. This post has reminded me that people quit bad bosses, not bad jobs. Humans can tolerate very bad situations if they feel appreciated.
Ironically, my old manager everyone hated that drove the store into the ground posted this on her LinkedIn. Zero self-introspection.